Welcome to CoinGape again. Thank you for joining us. And I want to tell you that to make it clear for both non-tech and for those who are really deeply in the industry and know the another side, I mean tech and dev side, let's start from the scratch. And can you tell us more about the project, about its core proposition, and tell us more about the team behind OpenLedger?
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me here. It's great to be here again and talk about what we are building. I'm Ram. I'm one of the core contributors of OpenLedger. We are a data blockchain for AI. And I have other core contributors in this space who are working with us. Myself and the team have been in the space for about 2017. We've been a blockchain R&D firm. We worked with a lot of blockchains, enterprise blockchains out there. We also worked with traditional space based enterprises like Viacom, Cadbury's, Pepsi, and many more as well. Got them into Web3. Been always behind the screen, behind the lens. Not really built a product that for the masses, right, for the consumers. We've always known how to do that because we've worked with people who did that. But we're waiting for the right time to do it. So after almost two cycles, from 2017 cycle and the 2021 cycle, with that now the market is mature enough to have like much more serious products, right? So started to build around that about a year back. Data was something that we've been very curious on. We wanted to make sure that how we can bring data on chain, how we can use data to as a factor to make changes in the industry using blockchain technology. And we also saw that AI in crypto was becoming big, right? Data and AI in crypto was essential. It started with the GPUs, but then it was migrating to this place, and so that kind of led us uh, go full strong on OpenLedger. We announced our raise about 6 months back, and we've been very active from then. And then built out a lot of products as we announced. We'll showcase what and all we're doing. So to just give you an idea about what is OpenLedger, it's a data blockchain for AI. If you take a look at the AI space, right, there is compute, data, and then models, right? Compute, as I told you, has been solved majorly, but data and models is something that people are really interested to solve using Web3 primitives. OpenLedger works in the space of data and models. If you take a look at all these ChatGPT and other applications out there, AI applications, they're all powered by a model. They're all powered by a brain and intelligence, which is letting you and giving you answers where you interact using this application, and then the application infers with these models, right? But if AI is going to be a general purpose technology, if it's going to be used in every other tech, you need to make sure that the model behind, the brain behind, is not very generalized. It's also for every other sectors that is there, right? For example, you can't take a large language model as it is and use it for, let's say, trading, right? Or use it for Web3 primitives like staking and all that, or probably use it for e-commerce, right? So you would need to fine tune these model to specifically do certain activities in a certain way. So there are three major ways that people deal this with for AI agents or any kind of AI apps or services. They start with prompts, right? So you give a prompt, you first educate that agent or a chatbot or whatever it is, what you want to achieve, right? So that's the first thing that you do. There's a second aspect to that is where you go ahead and provide RAG. You provide a data feed, and you guide these agents to do certain things in a certain way you want. And the third most looked at approach is like fine tuning models, where you take the model and you train it with certain data, specialized data for that particular action to happen. So these are three approaches that is taken. OpenLedger deals with the last two approaches I told you about, RAG and models, where we provide an infrastructure on which users can collect data, specialized data, which they believe is useful for the AI space For example, trading data, they could collect trading based insights, on chain data, off chain sentiments that could be collected over a data repository on top of us. And then you could go ahead and provide that as a RAG, which is like an external knowledge base that you provide to an AI agent. And then the AI agent uses that RAG to execute. Or if you want it to be much more efficient, you provide an additional model. You take an open source model, fine tune that with this data, and provide that model additionally to the existing model that is there to an agent or any kind of AI services for it to use this model as a brain, as a knowledge, as an intelligence to execute the work that you want it to do. So that's what OpenLedger is building. We are building this infrastructure, this orchestration platform that that brings in data contributors to contribute data, build models or RAG on top of us, and make it available for agents to use. And we'll be integrating with all the agent frameworks out there. We'll also be providing an API so any kind of AI apps can use our services to infer on these models or RAG that is there. Which is like think of them to be like an intelligence sector, right? Where you plug in. It's another external field, an agent or an AI app reaches out to get intelligence and then executes tasks. So that's what is OpenLedger. It's a layer two blockchain, and we've been working on this as I told you over the last 1 year. We are currently in testnet, having people experiment and build a product along with us, and then we'll be going mainnet soon.
Let me interrupt you. As you told that you bring some access to people to use it while it's in a testnet. Is it like open, and who can try this in this testnet, your product?
Yeah, so we are going with a phased approach in terms of the testnet. We start with having them use their compute power. There are two ways to use that. One is we use their internet bandwidth, another one is use their GPU to mine data, right? So that's the first approach. Anyone can contribute. We wanted the mass to contribute because one of the most important aspects of building models is collecting internet data, right? Apart from specialized data where people contribute specialized proprietary data, you would also want to have like a repository of internet data of various topics available in our platform so that anyone who's building a model can make use of that internet data as well. But for us to get large amount of internet data, get access to that, there could have been a way where we run centralized servers farms and then like we mine internet data, but that's not very scalable, right? And you're not also including any kind of community participation. So we wanted our community to participate and run nodes. These are like nodes which are simply downloadable using OpenLedger's website, which can be integrated to their browser plugin or on their desktop, and then it uses their internet bandwidth to go ahead and mine data, internet data from us, basically scrape internet data. So that's the first phase. That's where we let people go ahead and you provide their bandwidth for us to collect data, and that's how the community is interacting with OpenLedger. The second phase of this is this data will be available in our platform, and people can provide feedback to this. Right? They could go ahead and evaluate this data, provide feedback. There'll also be other data contributing factors that will open up. Like for example, in the phase two, we are experimenting on how we can bring in people to contribute for language data, contribute for certain unique proprietary information that they would hold, right? So that's the second phase. And the third phase of that is actually use this data to fine tune a model and showcase what kind of unique models people can build, right? So that's sort of like how our testnet will approach. And again, this is testnet, right? We want people to try out the product, play around with that, make mistakes and all that. So that we learn how people are using our product. Then from then we would look at going mainnet and completely providing the platform as a permissionless protocol. So anyone can go ahead and start collecting data on top of us using our data net contracts, and then use our tools to like build models on top of us. So that will be the
How
mainnet.
long? How long it can take?
So the mainnet, we are estimating it to be like 3 to 4 months time, as from as of today, is what we have planned for mainnet.
Yeah, thank you for explanation. I think even who really not in the industry and non-tech is like can really understand how it works now. And as a core contributor, can you tell us more like what's your role and what is your main task? What is your goal as a core contributor to OpenLedger?
So it is varied. Myself, my other core contributor, his name is Kamesh, and we both work together in this one, along with our team as well. We have an excellent team. We have about 20 odd members who work on this. Um, Multiple phases, as you know, right? There is actually building the product, which is very essential because the market evolves so rapidly.
Yeah.
Web3 itself is quite rapid. Everything changes every 2 months. Um, and on top of that, it's the AI space as well. There is so much happening in the AI space, so it's very rapid. So we need to catch up with what's happening in the industry and also make sure that the product is relevant to the industry that we are in. Meanwhile, also believing in what we think is the future, right? So we have to believe in the future and be active in the present. So that itself is one important aspect, as I think, building a company. Apart from that, it involves us marketing the product, talking about this, working with partners, working on making sure that we have relevant reaches as well. So, you know the drill. That's what is the major work that
Yeah,
we've
yeah,
been
yeah.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're close to tell us like more about the mission and impact. So, um, can you, in simple words, explain what is the impact on the industry of such a kind of project, and specifically of Open Ledger, and what's your mission? Because
Yeah.
I
So
think it's a future, it's kind of future, but can you, like in simple words, make it understandable? What's the impact on the industry?
no, absolutely. So on a larger scale, not just taking a look at the Web3 sector, right? We've all seen what happened with the industry when ChatGPT was introduced. We were all surprised what and all it could do. But it was fun. It was just majorly fun where you like interact and talk to it and it gives you answers. But apart from that, that kind of evolved. We saw people move towards building serious products around that, using OpenAI as the backend and implementing things that they want to do, which was much more, manual and had human intervention, right? So that's about to change much more as well. As I was telling you, people would start using AI services in every other sector that is there. We would see that evolve over the next coming years in Web3 and other sectors also. When that happens, like how internet evolved, we all indexed to the internet, we provided content to the internet, people started selling products on the internet, selling services on the internet, and internet happened. Same way in AI, one of the biggest contributions that humans can do or the industry could do is actually contribute data to AI, right? Index data to AI. I think that will change how the industry will evolve as well because there is only so much that has been tapped into um, that is currently powering the LLMs out there, right? And it's majorly internet data, and about 90% of the internet data, or at least 95% of the internet data, is useless, right? It's garbage. Only about 5% is some useful information that is there. Most of the other information is always held by proprietary firms, the people who have like their own proprietary content. Um, that has to be tapped in, that has to be brought outside, right? So, like how an internet, when it initially came about, internet happened because people contributed content to that, right?
Mhm.
Starting from bloggers, YouTubers, they all came forward and started contributing content on the internet. Now we consume internet for the content that is there. And then businesses also started contributing to internet, right? We had business who had official websites, informations that people were able to use. We had businesses go ahead and contribute content to players like YouTube and all that. So that had more proprietary information, much more high quality and useful information that was there that we could start consuming as well. Very similarly for AI, businesses and data contributors, individuals, subject matter expert have to come forward and contribute data to make AI specific for a particular task to do it much more efficiently, right? Or else it's just going to be a fun experiment that is there. So for that to happen, for people to come and contribute data, you need to build a system that is um, trustless, where anyone across the globe can contribute, knowing that they will get paid for that, right? So that's what we started building out here, right? We are building this mechanism where, let's say, anyone across the globe can contribute data. They know how the data transfers through our system, how the data was used to fine tune a model, or how the data was transformed into a RAG, and whether that model or RAG was actually inferred by an agent or an app, and if it was inferred, whether the data that that particular user provided was used in that inference, right? So we plot that out on that particular usage. On every inference, we plot which data point was used by data provider, and then we go ahead and attribute back saying that this particular data was used in this particular output, right? Now you have that information. Anyone who used this data could reward the data providers. They could know how valuable that data was. So there is price discovery. Data providers know they got, let's say, $10 for a particular inference. They know that they could provide much more high quality content to get like $15, right? So all of this has to be brought on a trustless system, has to be brought on chain, so that a data contributor knows that his data was used in a model. He can see that on chain, and he could see the model versioning on chain. He could see that there is an inference that happened, and he could verify that the inference happened on chain as well. And on that inference, he could figure out whether his data was used. That output is also on chain, and then he could know whether he's getting paid for that, and the payment is also on chain, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's basically what OpenLedger is building. This system where we need to orchestrate the data provider, model creator, and also an agent or a AI service that is using this service, orchestrating them together and making them use our platform is what OpenLedger is building. And once we have this infrastructure available, once we have this orchestration platform available, I believe people would start using it, because I don't see there are platforms like this available. People need platforms like this. You need to show them ways how their data can be monetized. And if we show them, what we believe is the industry would have a lot of people contributing data and getting paid for that. So yes, so that's what we are out here building, and that's I think that's going to be one of the most biggest changes that will happen in the industry the next coming years. And then as we do this, I think we will evolve as well. There has been other players like Kaggle, Hugging Face, and many more who been in
And
the space, but
it's kind of payable AI.
yes, because they're all more on open source. Most of it, and when it's open source, it's not monetized. It's useless data. Very few of it is like usable content, right? So we kind of understood that once you start monetizing data is when you would be able to get people to contribute useful information, right? So that is what we've seen happening with YouTube and other players as well. Like most of internet had garbage because people were not getting monetized. They could do whatever they
Yes.
want, and when they could know that they're getting monetized, then it becomes much more serious. I think same goes with like open source data. If we are able to figure out monetizing aspects for people who are contributing data and like building open source models, then you are enabling them to make money. Then it becomes a serious thing, and you get more useful information. So that's what we are building on, and I think this will evolve more as well.
Yeah, it's like your difference from other AI blockchain-based project. Yeah, it's really cool because this monetized aspect make the information more quality, and people are more like motivated and interested in it, and like the system. I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, and if we speak about like model behind AI, as you mentioned in the very beginning of our interview, can you tell like why is the shift towards specialized language models like they are gaining traction over traditional large language models?
Yeah, so if you take a look at it, like when AI was started being used, when I talk about AI, I talk about like generative AI. This was like implemented for businesses, and subject matters experts started using it. What they kind of figured out is that large language models are too huge because they're very generalized, right? So if
Mhm.
you wanted to execute a particular task, it just goes through a lot of time for you to prompt it and do a certain things in a certain way, right? But instead, it's very optimized to actually make this model become a specialized model, right? Which is trained for that particular service, where you go ahead and feed it data and make it much more sharper, much more, figured, for this particular purpose, right? In a way where it doesn't hallucinate much. Like for example, you're an undergrad student and you have a very generalized knowledge. But if I ask you to do a research, you might not be able to have that level of expertise. But a PhD might be able to have much better knowledge in terms of researching in that particular subject. Very similarly to that, you would want an expert to do a certain things in a certain way compared to a generalized knowledge. That's what a specialized models, right? Where you bring in an expert to do a certain things in the way that we want it to do, so that it doesn't hallucinate much, it doesn't like stray along. So I guess that's what people observed was happening, and they went ahead and started building like specialized models. Like there's this model called Phi model, which is a math-based model, which outperformed most of the open source and closed source large language models, foundation models that is there, right? We've seen it outperform OpenAI. We've seen it outperform Llama and all that because it is a specialized model built for that particular purpose in that sector. So we've seen this happen in the internet in the app era. There is searches like Google search is the universal search, and there are searches for jobs, there are searches for food, and there are searches for, let's say, lifestyle and all that. Google will give you like an overall index, but these particular searches will actually direct you to the place that you want to go, right? And the things that you want to see. Very similarly, SLMs are like directed towards a particular purpose, and it's much more efficient compared to a larger language model.
Yes, yes.
Less compute, less time. It's going to charge you lesser. If you're running your own model in your own environment, you don't want to run a large language model which has a lot of compute power that will consume. You just run a smaller language model which is just needed for your purpose, not just the generalized language knowledge, right? So that's what evolved, and that's what SLMs are today. And I think it's going to become much more bigger as well. There'll be more specialized models. They've been always telling this. Large language models are like OSs, and specialized models are like apps on top of that. So I guess that's how the industry will evolve as well. So yes, so those are like specialized models for you.
Yeah, it's the key advantages of specific domains. And how does OpenLedger address the challenge of keeping SLM updated with real-time and industry-specific data?
Yeah, interesting question. I think so. Yes, as you know, right, most of these large language models today become outdated as the years pass by because it has only so much of the latest contextual internet data or data that they've trained these models for. Same goes with specialized models as well. And specialized models is much more obvious because specialized data can be only available for a certain sector in a certain period, and after that, if the sector improves, the sector changes, it's useless. Like for example, trading itself, you could have it trained for trading, give it knowledge about whatever happened in the crypto industry over the last 10 years, give it knowledge about what are the various trading mechanisms that is there, off-chain data and on-chain data in terms of off-chain terms of sentiments and an on-chain of actual facts. You could train a model with that. It'll become an expert in that. But if you don't have like latest news as a RAG feeder to it, it's not going to perform the way you want it. It's going to have a backlog of information which is uses to go ahead and train and actually perform, right? So I guess it's very crucial for a specialized model to have like live context. There are multiple ways that we deal this with. One is RAG, as I told you, where it's an actual factual information or a knowledge base that is constantly feeded as an agent or an AI services operates, where you give it continuous feed of data, right? Another way to do that is to actually fine tune the models with people contributing data constantly, where we built a cycle where, let's say, your data was used to fine tune a model, and let's say you contributed languages, unique languages across the globe, and you went ahead and contributed, a particular subsector of that language, and there are 1,000 other people who contributed as well, and then we went ahead and fine tuned the model. It's a language model right now. Over the years, this model was used, but we might want you to come back and give latest information, other, let's say, colloquial words that we started to use, right? And if you want to contribute that, you would want to go ahead and get paid for it. So if your data was used and you get continuously paid. And if you and you're able to figure out that if you provide much more contextual information to that, and you're going to get paid more, and that data will also be consumed by AI and it will be relevant, then you will come back and contribute data, right? So building that cycle where people know that they're getting paid for it, and if they continuously provide more information, they're going to get paid more. That cycle is what I think would like really pull people to contribute data on a continuous manner. So these specialized models are up to date and relevant as well. So there are two aspects to this. One, building out mechanisms like RAG and all that to provide continuous data feed, which is a technology aspect. On the other side is actually having an operation aspect where you build out a cyclic product which lets people contribute data and get paid constantly for that, and knowing that if they give the relevant information they're going to get paid, right? So that's the other aspect where, oh, that's what OpenLedger is all about, making sure that everyone gets paid for the data, and they know that they will get paid more if they give context, and they continue to give that. So yes, that's how we deal with this.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And if we speak about like in the climate where data privacy is a major concern, how does OpenLedger's proof of attribution empower individuals or businesses to control their data?
So, data privacy is a whole new sector on its own, right?
Yeah.
So, in terms of us, why we need to care about data privacy is because there'll be a lot of proprietary data that will be contributed um, to our platform. And what we do is in terms of training, we have it's a permissionless platform, right? Anyone can contribute data. They can use our tools to train and like build a model for themselves or build a model that will be used by others. And if they believe their data is proprietary and it's private and they don't want exposure of their data to anyone who's involved in the supply chain, like for example, if it goes through training, they wouldn't want the data to be exposed, then our so we don't provide the training ourselves, the model training. We work with other partners, GP providers to do the model trainings. And we've integrated with providers who can help in terms of training based using privacy primitives, right? Like, for example, there are players who work on like ZKML, where the data that is actually being trained is not exposed at all. We have the players who use TE. We work with them as well. So we have those integrations in our platform, so they could decide to use the services they wanted to, and then the training process is private. And after the training process is private and the data is not exposed and a model is built, the model itself is doesn't give access to the data, right? It's a model and it's hosted in our platform, so people cannot create like derivatives out of it. They can access only through an API. So over there, the data is by naturally it's private. It's not exposed. So this is how like we deal with data privacy. OpenLedger by native doesn't provide any kind of data privacy. We work with other partners to make sure, let's say, wherever there is a possibility of data to be leaked, in terms of like processes where the data needs to be trained, we have mechanisms like privacy partners that we work with to make sure data is private.
And if we speak about like security, but can you tell how OpenLedger tried to balance decentralization with the need for security and speed in AI model operations?
Um, See, in terms of security, it really comes down to like uh, there are multiple aspects to security, right? So,
Yeah.
the privacy itself is one form of security, and there could be other things. One aspect that we deal with is we make sure that the models are not open, like so that anyone can actually like play around with these models. It's hosted in our platform and it's accessed only through an API. And we have our own secure enclave to do that. And we work with other partners like who provide like a secure inference solutions to execute that as well. So the host of the models is done by us and the inference is done by other partners, right? So that's one way like we implement security. But again, it comes down to like anyone who's building the platform. I mean, anyone who's building the models on top of us. We provide the protocol, which has its own security and it has its risk that is there. But we provide the protocol, so really depends on the builder who's using our product and what kind of security they need and what kind of services they wish to use. They can go ahead and use it because it's a permissionless platform, right? They can bring the data and they can start fine tuning a model, but there could be other partners that they integrate with during the process to make sure that it is secure and And I think that's how security is mated within our ecosystem.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And if we speak about use cases, can you
Mhm.
provide some examples of how OpenLedger-powered agents can be used in real-world scenarios?
Yeah, so interesting question. So we are in testnet and it's like close beta that's going on right now. There are a few players who are using our platform, many more which will be announced as well. So in that there is probably I can give you one example which is quite interesting and relevant to the Web3 space as well. There is a bunch of Ethereum community developers who've come forward and contributed solidity based data. These are like code and like code descriptions and documentations of solidity, which they've collected with their own property data and also from the community that they've collected and made the community contribute as well, which they've went ahead and fine-tuned an open source model like a Llama model with this solidity data. So this model now has information about solidity, code descriptions, and various code and actual documentations as well, which basically it's outperforming a model like Cursor, right? Cursor is good. It has knowledge about programming languages. It understands Solidity, but it's not an expert in Solidity. But this model is an expert in Solidity. It'll actually provide you various implementations which a cursor could not do. So they are building that on top of us, and that could basically power a Solidity Copilot, which is basically an agent which lets you program much more easier than you doing it yourself, right? So, and then there are players who are building unique products on top of us. Like there is a bunch of guys who are ex DeFi experts. They've been in the industry for quite some time. They're building an agent which is basically a trading agent which has a lot of on-chain data, years and years of on-chain data and off-chain data sentiments. And they've built a model around that. That model will power a DeFi agent to go ahead and trade for you. It'll start with like some human intervention, very little job like go ahead and do like a spot trade, right? And then they'll evolve that into actually doing leverage, and they'll evolve that into doing staking, and then figuring out lending mechanisms and stuff like that. So that's something that's being built on top of us. I mean, that's an experiment, I would say, because we wouldn't know how this will perform, and it deals with money. And these models are non-deterministic, right? You don't know how these models behave. So that's an interesting project that is going on. And there are a few more projects. People are building around healthcare, like DeSci. There is a mental health model that is being built. It's like a research model where people are contributing research content and building an agent on top of that, which can do like mental health based research. There are a few more other projects as well, like deepen based projects where people are contributing like deepen data, like IoT device data, and building a vision model on top of us. So many more to come, but we are waiting for the product to go mainnet. These are like closed beta people who we've conversed and know that they're actually seriously building, and we've enabled them to use the platform. But once the platform opens up, it becomes permissionless. I guess there'll be more innovations that will be coming forward as well.
Yes, and how does OpenLedger plan tailor its solution for kind of emerging industries like GameFi or DeFi, like any
Yeah.
other like emerging industries?
Yeah, so GameFi is very interesting because agents in games would be a very good narrative, right? So, like for example, the NPCs itself could be agents that interact with us and play along with us as the gameplay goes. For that, for the agent to have some knowledge, you need to feed it with like a lot of gameplay data. I guess that could be an interesting use case. We would love to have someone build that on top of us. DeFi, as I already told you, someone is building like an agent which can execute trades autonomously. We also want to see people who can like build like products, agents, which make DeFi much more easier, more intent driven. So that's similar to the agent which does trading, but we would wanted to have much more abstracted way of doing things. So I think that is something that we would love to see. Yeah, so there is more use cases. There are much more traditional use cases I think will open up. Like for example, like an e-commerce agent which can help you do shopping, right? And for that to work well, you need to build a model which has a lot of like shopping knowledge, like has knowledge about how to search a product, and how to what kind of relevancy and all that. So we would love to have a model being built around that. We would also want to see a lot of data feeds being provided on top of us, like on-chain data and off-chain sentiments, so that all these kind of DeFi AI models or agents can use. So that's something that we would love to see. So once the product goes live, I think all of this would happen as well. We've always seen requests coming to us about these topics, so I'm very sure that this will happen.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. And you mentioned like MPC, and I think it's really something big.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's really changed the industry overall. And like off the top, how do you think when we see MPC will be like in the mass?
You mean like in gaming?
Yes, yes, in gaming, I mean.
Yeah. It depends, right, how the innovation happens. Like, for example, I just saw the recent news that PUBG went ahead and integrated this inside their games, where like agents are part of your gameplay right now. Where if you're playing alone and you want a player, there's an NPC character which will start playing along with you and actually become another second player for you, right? And then they're also experimenting where they could go and interact with a character that is not an NPC basically, and then you could converse with it, and it based on the situation, it actually has its own knowledge to converse with you. So all of that is happening in the traditional space. I think EA also went ahead and announced certain updates that's gonna be rolled out. But I guess it's going to take some time. I don't think it's going to happen in real time right now. People are just playing around with AI because they
Yes.
really don't know how the system works. So everyone wants to do this because it's a good narrative. But I guess in few years we'll actually see useful implementations.
Okay, thank you. And last questions about what's your plan for like the future 2, 3 years, or maybe you have plan also for 5 years beforehand.
Yeah, so in crypto you don't plan for a longer period because everything
That's true.
changes.
That's true.
Everything changes every few months, and also the market determines how things will go, right? So, but yes, we have a long-term plan. The long-term plan is to build, the future of data marketplace, right? I think the future of data marketplace is where you can trace data, and where the data is actually not sold. It is the intelligence that's being sold, where data is converted to intelligence and that's being traded or that's being used. That's what we want to build. There is a lot of bottlenecks as we build this. We want to solve it as we go. We would see more challenges as people start building on top of us, and we want to solve that. We want to, see that purpose solved as well. So that's the long term, but there are short term goals that we want to achieve. Go mainnet first, and then see people building on top of us, see adoption being happening, and then like educate about that what is possible with data, what is possible with like specialized models, what is possible with like providing RAG to your existing agents, which are like simple Twitter bots, right? How can you make it much better? How can you make agents which are much more purpose driven? So that's sort of like the short term goals. And we would love to see how it turns out. And we're very passionate about what we've done in the space over the last almost a decade. So let's see how things go from here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Please follow OpenLedger XYZ, Instagram or Twitter, and of course, CoinGate Twitter and YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for
Thank
this
you.
insightful and something interesting in the industry, something new. Wish you all the best and see you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Nice talking to you.